Good evening, viewers, and welcome to another edition of Sports Focus. I'm your host, Fitzroy Prendergast, and as we do every Sunday afternoon, we discuss your favorite sporting topics, and of course, we have usually a very interesting, lively personality with us to discuss whatever is happening in the world of sports. And this evening is no different. Of course, we have one of the most renowned local coaches in Jamaica, Geoffrey Maxwell, with us, and we're going to be talking about football and his exploits in various Premier League teams, as well as his latest move to Arlington Football Club in the parish of St. Catherine. Well, let me just tell you that at 8:30 we're going to be having our sports flashback segment, and that's brought to you by Popeyes. Love that chicken. So 8:30 we'll be having our sports flashback segment, but we're going to be speaking with Geoffrey Maxwell, the former national coach and of course now coaching Arlington. Geoffrey, good evening and welcome to Sports Focus.
Good evening, and thanks for having me once again.
Geoffrey, Arlington, you have that's your latest job in terms of the Premier League. Quite a number of clubs that you have been to. Arlington, why the move to Arlington?
Well, I know Everton Foster, who is the president for quite some time, and Arlington, as you know, have just qualified for the Premier League. They have gone about 8 games so far, and at this point in time, he felt that he needed a little bit more emphasis on an experienced individual to come and help the club. And as long as I'm not coaching or doing anything, I'll help anybody, because I think that's how we need to operate in Jamaica, to spread the knowledge to any area that can be helped, and that is how I eventually end up at Arlington.
How has it been for you so far?
It's been a good challenge, and one of the reasons why I went, because I like challenges. And I felt that I was getting a little saturated with the Premier League. I think that, quite frankly, I am looking in the possibilities of overseas, because I'm a little bit saturated with the Premier League. I think I've mostly gone through the entire Premier League, successful as a coach, as a player. And I think I should be shooting for something much higher now. And at Arlington so far, everything is fine. The players have trained very well. We did pretty well in our last game. And it's just a matter of bringing something new to them, and it will take about 2 or 3 weeks.
How have they accepted you as the new coach of Arlington?
Well, for a start, there is no decision on their part, but I've been accepted very well by the players. They're very enthusiastic to have me there, and they have learned pretty well in the last week or two. The players, what I like about them is that after training, they do come to you and they ask you, where they're going wrong, and if you could help them in whatever weak department they are. So it's a good family base, so to speak, in terms of players, coming and speaking with you, and you speaking with them even after training. It's good so far. I haven't had no problems.
Let me examine, in terms of the talent there that you would have seen, how would you rate the talent at Arlington?
Arlington, if they do stay in the Premier League, would take about 2 to 3 years, quite frankly, to be into the top 3, top 4 teams, of course, with just what they have there. There is what I would call uncoached talent at the moment at the club, because to play as a team, to understand how to play football is different from I can play football, that type of thing. So I think it would take 2 to 3 years with the present crop to really bring them to the fore. Like what most clubs are doing, buying players, etc. You can buy a team very easily in Jamaica once you have the funds. But there's about, I would think, about a half a dozen players between the under 21s to about possible the under 23 level that I think have some potential that could be looked at in the various national under 23s or under 21 programs.
So you reckon that it's a good enough team to of course give some surprises in the Premier League?
Well, one wouldn't say it's a good enough team, because you're only good when you win trophies. But I think within another month or 2, so to speak, I think we'll pull off a few surprises against the more established teams, because right now I would consider them going through a learning stage in terms of the Premier League. They've just come up and they've tasted losses, and they've won 1 game and drawn a few. So it's a learning process for them, although they have 2 very experienced players in terms of Richard Henry and Greg Gardner, who have played Premier League for Constant Spring in the past. Short of that, the other players are very green to the Premier League, but very enthusiastic bunch, and we have a good 30 players every evening. We train for 3 hours a day.
In terms of the whole atmosphere at the club, in terms of the support base, is there a problem with that, or there is, in your opinion, quite a very enthusiastic support base for this club?
There's a very enthusiastic support base, because in the evenings at training we do have a fair-sized crowd watching it. And at the same time, people welcome help anywhere in this country, regardless if it's football or any other type of sport, so to speak. And in the afternoons, the reception by people of the community watching the team train has been very encouraging. And of course, you'll have 5 million coaches in a community that will give advice. And it's always good to listen to advice, especially support people, because sometimes they see things that you really bypass and you're not become aware of it. So there's a good rapport. I spend some time talking with people in the afternoons to get a feel of what is happening there.
Let's look at their present performance in the Premier League. Not the best start, obviously. But the last game on Wednesday, they drew 2-2 with Constant Spring, your former club. Satisfying result for you, Geoffrey?
Not really, because I had targeted that game that we should have taken 3 points from it, seeing that we have to play Arnett Gardens on Sunday and then Village the following Sunday, 2 very tough back-to-back games. So we had targeted Constant Spring for 3 points yesterday. It was disappointing to me because I thought we did not transfer how we play in training at the game. It could be tension, nervousness, because when you're losing a lot of games, the confidence level is what I'm working on to try and get it up. And I thought they did very well, because I felt had we scored that goal in the first 15 minutes of play, the game could very well have changed. But they ended up coming from behind twice, which shows a lot of character and a lot of fight. And if we can apply that with a sort of coordinated football, they could spring up a surprise or two.
Well, speaking with Geoffrey Maxwell, the former national coach, now coaching Arlington Football Club in St. Catherine, and we're talking about his role at Arlington right now. And Geoffrey, it's all well and good. One of the things that everybody know, if you've been watching Premier League for quite a while, they would have known that you would have moved from a number of clubs throughout the years. Some people might say that your personality might, be one of the factors why you have moved from one club to the next and so on. Are you happy with that in terms of the fact that you've been able to move to so many clubs in such a short period of time, really?
Well, I think quite frankly it's an advantage to me, because I get a chance of seeing all the clubs, how they operate, and I get a chance of seeing all the players, so to speak. I think one of the main problems that I have with most clubs is the simple word discipline. I'm not prepared to allow players to try and dictate to me, and I'm not prepared to allow management to tell me who to play or how a team will train. They have their duties, I have mine. I have a very strong personality that will not accept anything of a low level in terms of a professional approach to coaching. And I think this has been one of the problems with a lot of the teams. But surprisingly, with most of the teams that I have been with, I've usually been able to move them from bottom to top, or into a molded team, so to speak. I think one of the problems that I do have is that, having had the opportunity to have gone to Brazil and did so well in the advanced course, I remember Zico and I think it was Telesantine, if I'm not mistaken, had asked me the question if Jamaica plays professional football, and I told him no. Jamaica plays at amateur level, and what they said to me has come back to haunt me. They say, well, you're going to have a problem in Jamaica, because we have prepared you to train professional players, and training professional players are far different from training amateur players, and as you know, Jamaican players are amateurs. So you find that happy medium has been difficult for me sometimes to arrive at. And when you train professional players, you tell them what you want out there, you tell them what you expect, you have tactical plans. They adhere to it and do what they're asked. When you train amateurs, you tell them what you want, but sometimes they go out there and the concentration level is so low, along with a lack of discipline, team discipline, that you don't get the same type of response so it becomes an irritation. So sometimes balancing that act can be very difficult, especially if you have set yourself a very high target.
Tell the viewers a little bit about your experience in Brazil. I mean, some people might have known that you had the opportunity to go to Brazil and train as a coach, but elaborate a little bit for me as it relates to that experience.
Well, I think everyone should understand that when you believe you know about something and you go abroad into the real professional atmosphere and people show you things and train is when you realize you knew nothing. In the first year up at Brazil, I think I spent something like 2 months or 3 months up there doing the basic course. You had to end up in the top 2 to be accepted in the advanced course or be exempted because you have taken other courses elsewhere. And having finished the first year, we did a lot of basic football training, the usual discipline that goes behind it, a history of the game, tactical football. When I went on to do the advanced course, I came out on top ahead of some 20 or 22 coaches. I think even the Nigeria national senior team coach in 1990 or 94 came second to me in that course. It now puts you into a different era because you go into team management, you go into tactical training, physical training. They show you exactly how you prepare an international team different away from preparing a club team. They also explain to you about psychology in sports. You go to university for lectures up there that you're lectured by professors of the particular subjects, sociology, psychology, sports analysis. Then they move you on to going and watching games, which I had an opportunity to go to Maracana, and about 110,000 people attended this big game. And they put you in different sections of the coaching personnel. They ask a set to you be the opposition, you be the home team, you will analyze defense or you will analyze midfield. And then the next day at classes at the university, they'll bring the 2 coaches of these 2 big teams. One was Santos, one was Sao Paulo, and the other one was Flamengo. And you don't know that these are the 2 coaches. And they say, okay, if you were a coach of such and such, how would you have approached the game? What would you have done? And you have to get up, go to the blackboard. You have to explain what you saw went wrong, what should have been done. And you're not aware that these 2 big professional coaches are sitting there observing. So you are marked along that line. And then that is used to upgrade, you know, your various aspects of a course. And then you have an exam that you have to sit. And I was fortunate to come out on top. And I remember getting a letter from the Brazil FA that was sent down here, and it was tried to be stifled by a particular organization, that I was exceptional in terms of being a coach, knowledge of the game, and they see where I could go extremely far. The unfortunate thing is when I became national coach in the 89 time for the 1990 World Cup, we didn't have not even 5% of what is being put together today. And I thought we had a good bunch of players, and had we had this type of support, I would have gone and, you know, collected possibly better foreign-based players to come down straight. We could have been in the World Cup from 1990. But funding and organization was not there during that time in comparison to the other.
Well, we're having a very fun-filled and a very entertaining discussion with Geoffrey Maxwell, and of course lots of knowledge in terms of football, and we're going to be taking a break. When we come back, we're going to be having more with Geoffrey Maxwell on Sports Focus.
Field in line, they're off quickly. Making their way now to cover just about the first half of furlong. Zabu in the Sandman race on the far side. Just in front of them, Royal Malice. Quick Medic right there with Royal Malice. Restless Warrior is showing some speed more toward the center. Hideous Prospect over there too, along with the green with the orange cap. Prime Fury, Mr. Dunn as usual has speed. Buyer Book has drifted right across toward the stands. They make their way now, they're spread across in a line, still an open affair as they make their way now toward the final quarter, with Prime Fury looking to have the overall lead. Mr. Dunn angling to the stands, Buyer Book just in behind him. Cozy Prospector also drifting toward the stands, Hideous Prospect in the center, but Prime Fury possibly just the leader inside the final furlong. Hideous Prospect now laying out and finding her best stride in the center of the course. Prime Fury battling to hold Hideous Prospect well inside the final 16th. Hideous Prospect gaining on Prime Fury, and Hideous Here's Prospect scores over Prime Fury, Royal Malice and Zabo.
We're having a very good discussion with the former national coach Geoffrey Maxwell. A little bit about your experience in Brazil. I mean, some people might have known that you had the opportunity to go to Brazil and train as a coach, but elaborate a little bit for me as it relates to that experience.
Well, I think everyone should understand that when you believe you know about something and you go abroad into the real professional atmosphere and people show you things and train is when you realize you knew nothing. In the first year up at Brazil, I think I spent something like 2 months or 3 months up there doing the basic course. You had to end up in the top 2 to be accepted in the advanced course or be exempted because you have taken other courses elsewhere. And having finished the first year, we did a lot of basic football training, the usual discipline that goes behind it, a history of the game, tactical football. When I went on to do the advanced course, I came out on top ahead of some 20 or 22 coaches. I think even the Nigeria national senior team coach in 1990 or 94 came second to me in that course. It now puts you into a different era because you go into team management, you go into tactical training, physical training. They show you exactly how you prepare an international team different away from preparing a club team. They also explain to you about psychology in sports. You go to university for lectures up there that you're lectured by professors of the particular subjects: sociology, psychology, sports analysis. Then they move you on to going and watching games, which I had an opportunity to go to the Maracana, and about 110,000 people attended this big game. And they put you in different sections of the coaching personnel. They ask a set to you be the opposition, you be the home team, you will analyze defense or you will analyze midfield. And then the next day at classes at the university, they'll bring the 2 coaches of these 2 big teams. One was Santos, one was Sao Paulo, and the other one was Flamengo. And you don't know that these are the 2 coaches. And they say, okay, if you were a coach of such and such, how would you have approached the game? What would you have done? And you have to get up, go to the blackboard. You have to explain what you saw went wrong, what should have been done. And you're not aware that these 2 big professional coaches are sitting there observing. So you are marked along that line. And then that is used to upgrade, you know, your various aspects of a course. And then you have an exam that you have to sit. And I was fortunate to come out on top. And I remember getting a letter from the Brazil FA that was sent down here, and it was tried to be stifled by a particular organization, that I was exceptional in terms of being a coach, knowledge of the game, and they see where I could go extremely far. The unfortunate thing is when I became national coach in the 89 time for the 1990 World Cup, we didn't have not even 5% of what is being put together today. And I thought we had a good bunch of players, and had we had this type of support, I would have gone and, you know, collected possibly better foreign-based players to come down and train. We could have been in the World Cup from 1990. But funding and organization was not there during that time in comparison to the other.
Well, we're having a very fun-filled and a very entertaining discussion with Geoffrey Maxwell, and of course lots of knowledge in terms of football. And we're going to be taking a break. When we come back, we're going to be having more with Geoffrey Maxwell on Sports Focus.
Well, it's now look to the old set. 1,400 meters, the distance. They're off. Young Doctor comes away last. Exchange only took off quickly. There goes Mediator. He possesses dash and shows it by leading by more than 1 length over Exchange only and Lady Shalimar nearer the rail. My Bluebell races on the outside of Lady Pam. They're tracked by Lady Phaedra. Countess Jim just there against the rail, possibly 7 off that lead. Economic Reality ahead of Scarlet Royal in the red silks with the black cap. Ganador races next. Young Doctor is on the outside of Prime Suspect running the rail, and just last, that's Tempest Fugit. They're at the half mile and spinning into that turn, and Mediator continues to hold the advantage by 2 lengths. Exchange only chasing on the outside of Lady Shalimar. My Bluebell now stoked up by the rider to make up a 5-length deficit. Lady Pam a further length and a half back as they make their way passing the 3, followed closely by Lady Phaedra. Tempest Judith in the yellow silks races just ahead of Scarlet Royal. Then Young Doctor, Countess Jim plying the rail route. Prime Suspect toward the back along with Ganador as the field now have turned into the lane. Mediator out in front but beginning to tire. Lady Shalimar applying the pressure and drifting toward the stands. My Bluebell taking aim down against the rail, in behind them Exchange only, Lady Phaedra and Tempest Fugit toward the outside, but My Bluebell on the far side has now come through to grab the advantage. Lady Shalimar in the center, a 16th remaining, and My Bluebell is pouring it on and under full power, and the right-hand stick will score by 5 or more. Lady Shalimar hangs on for second. It's tight for third. Tempest Fugit on the outside, of over on the far side, Exchange only, Lady Phaedra back in 5th.
We're having a very good discussion with the former national coach Geoffrey Maxwell, and we're speaking about his role in football, particularly at Arlington Football Club. He's now the coach at Arlington Football Club, and we're also looking at his stint in Brazil, where he did, of course, advanced coaching course there, and we just had a little break, and we're going to be picking up with his role as coach at the national level in the 1989-1990 period. Geoffrey, in that period when you were coach of the national team, were you unhappy with the level of support from the federation then and the effort made to acquire the funding necessary to take the program beyond the level it was?
Definitely, because I felt that the federation was light years behind where my mind was going, based on what I saw in Brazil and how they showed various preparation of national programs. And I felt at that time that it was very hard to have been a national coach, and I tried to implement a lot of things. I mean, I was the first national coach that brought foreign players here, because I believed that we did not have enough talent to go much further. I was also the first national coach that made certain that the national team trained in uniforms. This had never happened in all of the years before. I also designed the Jamaica Football Federation's first badge to have been worn by a national team. I also brought the idea of having pennants being exchanged between captains, and in terms of having the players being housed together, it was very rough. But I brought a lot of things to the table. I suggested at that time to the federation at that moment, where I had a plan which was similar to what Simone's did in 1998, but it was looked at as being outrageous, crazy, impossible. And I felt that this was the way forward. But when you're a local person, unless you get I think the mistake that I made, I should have taken it upon myself to have gone and spoken with the sponsors personally. I think that's the error that I made, because I was not convinced that the federation was of that high level of thinking to move the sport to a higher level, where my mind was going. And I thought I was about 4 or 5 years ahead of the persons who were in charge at that time. Because I think at that time most people just looked at football as a pastime, and I was looking at it as a much more serious thing. But to see a foreign coach come here and implement, I would say 90% of the plan that I had laid down in the early years, and to have it done was very rewarding. But you had a different type of administration. So that was the big difference at that stage, because I remember I had to ask Laurie Foster, who I believe is a JC connection, if I could if I could ask him for 12 balls to train the national squad, because we just didn't have equipment. I remember asking Duke Holness, who was, I think, a product manager at Milo, if his company would stand the cost of the training gears. No, I think that that is not a coach's role, but I took that upon myself, because where my mind was going, the administration that was in at that time, in my mind, was just way behind time. So it was a tug of war, and we did the best we could. I mean, players would be given like possible 100 US if we won a game, or be offered $2,000 if we won a game, which was ridiculous compared to our current players getting about 3,000 US for winning a game. And of course, during those days of preparation, $70,000, $80,000 for monthly salary. So it was a far cry, and that is why I felt very down but not out during my tenure, because my ideas were light years ahead of where the federation was at that particular time.
Would you want another crack at the national coaching job?
Well, quite frankly, I would have loved to have coached this set of national players, because I think this set of national players was a good bunch, but I believe personally that they were not coached as in terms of coaching, because quite frankly, I didn't see anything, I have not seen anything that any of the foreign coaches have come here and shown me anything about football coaching. Because to me, the foreign coaches basically represent dollars and cents, which of course aids the program. But I've not seen football-wise they've shown me anything, and I've questioned over the past the tactical approaches by some of the coaches. But I would definitely and hope, I would love to be in charge of the 2010 program, quite frankly, because I think when a lot of these foreign players come here, I think we give them too much respect thinking that they are big players. And I don't think the coaches tend to coach them, because when we look even at the last set of players that we had here in the last campaign, the team to me just didn't look like it was being coached. You can see tactical football, you can see formations, you can see a method in play. I did not see that, and it did not convince me. I had a very interesting conversation with a very senior national player just recently over the last couple of days. And I've always said the team, to me, always appeared to be very tired by the 75th minute, the 80th minute of play. And I've always suspected that when these players come down from either Europe or wherever, I think they put too much emphasis on running them through, again, a physical program to get them ready for an international. Yes, you must stretch them out, but not these heavy physical programs of preparation 2 days before official game. And the player said to me that I was 100% right, because he has always, and this is a very leading senior player, which I can't call his name, and he said to me that I hit it on the bone, because most of the times during the game, by the 75th minute, a lot of them used to complain about tiredness. And he felt that it was very crazy to train that physically. With only 2 days to go to a game, they should be working more on the tactical approach, etc., etc. And I hit it on the nail, and when he told me, I was not surprised, but shocked in terms of the headspace of the coaching aspect of the team. I'm not afraid to say it.
When you look at this team, some people might argue that this is certainly one of the best teams that we have put together to represent Jamaica in a World Cup qualifier. What did you think went wrong in any way with this national team, why we did not qualify for the final round of the World Cup qualifiers?
Well, there's a lot of argument that we can put forward. One of the main ones is that the 98 campaign, the players were together for 3 years. That makes a big difference. This campaign, again, I think that we didn't get the players together over the required length, because I think we played too much possum with the clubs. FIFA's rules say you can get the players 5 days before a game. We're getting most of the players 2 days before. And that's the time this heavy training went in, and some of the players have complained, and it has been said to me, and I don't think the players are liars. But I think where we went wrong, I don't think we did enough homework on the opposition. I think we took a lot of things for granted. When I had warned very heavily about Panama, people thought I was crazy. But I did a lot of research work and a lot of tracking of Panama, and I came up with the right goods. I said they could qualify, and they did qualify. I think also that we did not spend time coaching the players towards what international football is about. We relied heavily on them coming from their clubs and thinking that they would just go out and play and deliver. I think also the choices and makeup of the teams that were selected against particular teams was not looked at carefully. We seem to play the same team against everybody. And I thought that we should have taken the United States different away from Panama, away from El Salvador, etc., etc. The key factor is, in 98, for argument's sake, a perfect example, we had Burton. Burton was similar to King. The difference is that we had Simpson in midfield, who could pass well over 30 to 60 yards. So he was able to give Burton the English style of pass that Burton benefited on to score goals. This time around, we had King. King did not have a midfield player that could pass accurate over 30 to 60 yards. So he was going to be in trouble.
Hold that point for me. I think it's
It's got the best tasting chicken, Popeyes. They've also got super side orders, fresh crisp salads and delicious desserts for the entire family. The time by Popeyes love that chicken is...
the time is now 8:30, and of course that's brought to you by Popeyes. Maxwell, continue.
And I thought that, you know, it was a problem because I said to people that King would fade eventually because he was not getting the type of service he's a King is the type of player that you have to put the ball in front of him and he plays well. King was brought in and he was being shown on how to play the touch game. This was not King's makeup, and King faded. And I thought that we need to assess carefully when we bring players here. If we're going to use them, then we must provide them with the type of players that are going to give them opportunities. It is not right to criticize because we have done pretty well, but the hard, cold facts is you have not been qualified, so you have done bad. And the only time you do well is when you win a trophy or qualify. So I thought the program was in danger from when we drew with El Salvador out here. That's when I spotted the danger, because I thought that we seem to have been approaching in a very quiet, arrogant manner.
Didn't you see a problem with the fact that we brought in Lazzaroni at the start of the second round rather than giving him an opportunity to start with this team from, let's say, the first round of the qualifiers, so that he would have gotten more in tune to these players and would have been able to have more time with these players?
Well, my gut feeling is that Lazzaroni coming later early, he has to know how to approach his program. I thought that basically, and the reason why I say it is because I thought basically he would have gotten an in-depth feel from Carl and the rest of the staff, because when he made that statement that he did not know who to have sent on against the United States, it had pushed me back a while and questioned a lot of facts, because it made me felt that there was not a sort of camaraderie between Carl and himself, though it has been said by either party, oh yes, 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 but behind closed doors I wasn't convinced. Because I would think if I came from overseas, I would have drilled Carl and company to tell me, one, if we are winning a game, who could I send on to close up the game? If we are losing a game, who could I send on to open the game? This is the type of player I would like to have to create goals, and this is the type of player I would like to have to stop goals. So my suspicion in all of this might not have been done, because in the selection process, in leading up to the games, the changing of players, it did not give me answers to those questions I just asked.
Well, very interesting discussion with Geoffrey Maxwell, the former national coach. And the program now is at a crossroads. Obviously, quite a number of sponsors have, jumped ship, so to speak. And the JFF has now started with what you'd probably say a new theme. The under-20 and the under-23s are the core players in the national team now. Do you think this is the right move?
Well, I think this is more of a marketing strategy, so to speak, because the United States Virgin Islands and this other country, St. Martin, is not something where you can create a measure. I'm pretty certain that even Shortwood or 35 Masters team could beat any of these two teams from what I saw. So we have to be careful that we're not fooling ourselves and thinking that, okay, we're going to go youth and this set of players will be ready for 2008 qualifiers. We have to remember that in 2008, we're going to be meeting up most likely more seasoned professionals. And you see, one of the problems that we're not looking at carefully, our under-21s and under-23s cannot play with the world top under-21s and under-23s. We have to keep in mind that when a youngster in Brazil or Europe is drawn into football at age 16 going up to 20, his parents has accepted and decided that he's going to become a footballer. And when you have a gifted under 16 to under 20 Jamaican player, his parent knowing that football is not a money-making venture in Jamaica from a player point of view, is going to be thinking of getting him into university to create ambition for him and a future for him. So it is two different playing fields we are playing with. If we are going to think that this set of under 20, under 21 players is going to be the focus of 2008, then we have to decide in collaboration with their parents that we want them to become footballers. And we remove them from the school system and interject them into a professional unit for the next 3 to 5 years. Now the question is, are we prepared to do that? I don't know. So you have to be very careful when we're talking about youth program. What if we play St. Lucia and lose?
Yeah.
Just what if? I mean, that will just blow everything out the water. So there's nothing wrong with the thrust being, say, we're going to be thinking of rebuilding a team and youth. Because 1 minute you hear that it's going to be a youth program, and the next minute you hear, oh no, what we're going to do is to still bring in senior players as we see fit. So there's not a very straight line of what we are doing, but we should not fool ourselves that our youth programs can compete with the overseas youth programs, because when you look at, for instance, the Brazil under-17 squad and the Brazil under-20 squad, after all is done for 2 to 3 years, sometimes it's just 2 players who make it from the juniors into the senior team. And if we are going to have a national program with a young team, and believe that out of 20, 15 is going to be good enough to complement the 2008 program, we're walking on water. And the only way you can do is sink. So the overall picture is we have to be careful. There's nothing wrong in the direction that the JFF is taking at this moment in time. Everyone can understand. I don't think the sponsors jump ship. I think it's a normal trend that when you finish a campaign, sponsors move off in different directions. I'm very happy to know that Digital and 1 or 2 other companies have decided to continue to help, because you need funds to actually continue a program. But we have to be careful that we don't allow this current Digital first round fool us a lot. But it's refreshing to have seen the team playing some better football, so to speak, and scoring a lot of goals.
Well, we're speaking with Geoffrey Maxwell, the coach of Arlington, and of course the former national coach, and we're looking back at his role in terms of coaching the national team and his perspective on why Jamaica failed to qualify for the World Cup and the path the current JFF administration is taking in trying to rebuild and re-energize the football culture here in Jamaica. Well, we're going to be looking at Geoffrey's stint in the Premier League. He started with Waterhouse in the Premier League. Big success for you there. For the viewers, if you could just give the viewers a little synopsis of when you started in the Premier League particularly, and what has it been like for you?
Well, we went into the Premier League in about 1996, 97, with Waterhouse had won everything. And I felt that it would have taken Waterhouse 2 years. I remember saying it very frankly that in the first year, our most important thing was to ensure that we remained in the Premier League. I think we ran 6th or 7th that year. And in the second year...
That's after winning the Major League?
Major League.
Right.
And in the second year of the Premier League, I stated very clear that Waterhouse would win the Premier League in 1998, because I had seen all the teams that had played. And I felt at that stage, my experience coming out of the Brazil Academy, etc., I felt that I could outthink all the coaches and win the 1998 Premier League. And before the season started, I said we would have won it, and we did it. And for about 2-3 years, we were able to dominate the senior league scene by winning tremendous trophies. I'm not blowing a trumpet, but I have been to 19 finals in 29 years. I've won 14 finals and I've lost 5. And this is from schoolboy level going straight up to the senior club level. And I don't think there's any other coach in this country at all, any coach that has that level of success. That did not come from just arriving one day. But I always feel that the coaching in the country was at a very low level, and you could outthink these coaches by implementing tactical awareness to the players, and I thought it did very well with Waterhouse. Waterhouse was always a club that had a very strong fan base, and they were always, very pressurizing. Coming second with a Waterhouse team was not accepted at Waterhouse. And I've always felt that they had everything, it was just the professional know-how to have implemented it. And they have done very well, and today they are one of the strong teams in the Premier League. Waterhouse has never been out of, I think, the top 4 from 1996 going up. I might be in error by 1 year. But it's a good thing for people on the outside, because I remember when I was being asked to come to coach Waterhouse, quite a few people said to me that I'm crazy. You can't go down into Waterhouse where there's, what people had said at that time, a ghetto system and a lot of wrongs and rights being done down there. You might get hurt, the shooting, the this, the that, etc. And I believe that, I am pretty certain, I might be wrong, but I believe even Dennis Zadie was asked to come and coach Waterhouse, and he didn't go. And quite a few people have been there, and there has never been much success. And I was able to go there and turn them around. And history goes on and gives you all the results, etc., etc. But we had a good time. And possibly one day we might return. There have been close calls in coming back.
Yeah. Let me put this question to you. In all your years at the Premier League level, which is the best experience you've had?
I would think definitely coaching Waterhouse in the Premier League Championship year, 1998, because we went to every final, which I don't think has ever been achieved by any club in this country. We went to the Jackie Bell final, the mid-season final, the Confederation Cup final, and the Premier League final. And we won 3 out of 4, which means we came second and 1. So 98 year was always going to be something that I will always remember. In terms of games, I would always say that a particular game at the stadium against Arnett Gardens, when we were down 2-0 and we won 3-2, was the game that was most memorable to me. You had easily 20,000 people in the stadium, where the football at that time was at a very high level. So those are times that I would not forget very easy. And I think in winning the Jackie Bell trophies, which Jackie was a very close friend of mine, used to coach Matt Santos, meant a lot to me also. So it was in the 96 to 98 years, that I would really say that I enjoyed it.
Your worst year in the Premier League? Any team that you really
I would think that my most disappointing year, I wouldn't say worst, my most disappointing year would be at Village Football Club. When I came there, I think they were running in the bottom 3 or bottom 4, and I was able to guide them to the semi-finals. I had taken a stand that one of the players, Fabian Dawkins, would not play in the return game because I felt he was not being a team player and he was not functioning within the team's tactical instructions. I was very disappointed in terms of the management, because I was told by one of the managers there that his mother or family was crying on their shoulders that if Fabian didn't play, he would not be exposed to the JFF, so the JFF could select him for national duty, etc. I felt that he was not of that caliber, and I was not moved by that, and I told him that he was not going to play. If he had to play, then I would leave. I left on the Wednesday down there, and then I read it in the papers Friday, Maxwell is fired, and it was always amusing to me. I think that was my disappointment, because I felt that season, when we had reached the semi-final, though we lost, I think it was 2-1 to Portmore in Montego Bay, I felt very confident that we could have turned that score around in Kingston, because I felt that the team was maturing at the right stage. So when I wasn't a part of that and I saw them, they had gone down in the semi-final, it was very painstaking for me, because I believe I had developed something there that could have won the Premier League that year. So that was very disappointing for me. In terms of results, I wouldn't say that there was any, failure, so to speak, because I've never really failed with a team. They've always moved up. I mean, last year with Constant Spring, There was very limited talent there, and we reached the semi-finals of the Jackie Bell. We had beaten Tivoli down at Tivoli Gardens 3-1. We had beaten Portmore 1-Love at Portmore. We had beaten Harborview 2-0, and these were the three top teams last year, and I don't think the Constant Spring team really had anything much in them. So I think it was more at that stage a lot of my brain thinking and power to get them to do. So to me, it was always easy to outthink the local coach, and that's why sometimes I feel like a stagnated at the local level.
Excellent point to close the segment on Geoffrey Maxwell with us on Sports Focus. We're having a good time. We'll be back with more on Sports Focus.
Dr. RSF get off slow. Isimiaki goes through the Blaze that trail along with Abuelo. They share the lead, and Abuelo now gets the head in front and inches away from Isimiaki. They're followed closely by Ruckus in the green, Takuman in the blue with the white out wide. Just against the rail from a Jack to a King Square Garden being urged in between horses. Champion Melody forming that line of three. Dr. RSF needs to find 5 or 6 lengths, and Shahid at the back. Passing the 7/16th, Abuelo out in front continues to occupy pole position. Ruckus now breathing right down his neck and gaining as they lead the 3. Takuman is a further 2.5 lengths back in third, just in front of Isimiaki. From a Jack to a King scraping paint as they now come turning into the lane with Abuelo on the rail, hugging it with that lead. Ruckus continuing now to attack on the outside, and Ruckus possibly just the leader over Abuelo. Takuman trying to close in behind. From a Jack to a King is the one racing on the rail. Isimiaki out toward the center, Shahid over toward the far rail. A furlong to run, Ruckus with the lead. Shahid trying to close up. It's Ruckus with the advantage from Abuelo, and Shahid coming with a run from a Jack to a King on the far side. Ruckus from Shahid, and from a Jack to a King, possibly Ruckus over Shahid from a Jack to a King. In behind them, Takumen just in front of Abuelo.
Welcome back to Sports Focus. We're having a great discussion with Geoffrey Maxwell, the former national coach, and of course now coaching Arlington Football Club in the Premier League. Now we want to look at Geoffrey Maxwell's rise to prominence in terms of coaching, and it's interesting that a lot of people might have heard about Geoffrey Maxwell, might have seen him coaching, or might even see him playing, but not necessarily know when Geoffrey Maxwell started to get seriously interested in football. Geoffrey, take us back to when you really believe that football is your calling in one way or the other.
Well, I used to go over to Merle Grove High School every Saturday morning. They used to have scrimmages over there. And I would go over like 6 o'clock in the morning with the ball, and I'd be training, hitting the ball against the wall, practicing ball control. I used to fantasize that I was a Brazilian, I was playing for Brazil, and this is how we trained. And that momentum developed me towards possibly my destiny as a football coach, etc. From there, I played minor league for Medhaven. In those days, I was like a player coach, because at that level you didn't have much people being involved with coaching minor league. I owe a lot to Keith Node, who started the minor league. Skip, as we call him. He directed me a lot towards how my life would have been in terms of football. Then I got attached to Gainstead High School, where David Burgess, a former Jamaican striker, attended, and that's where I really started to coach. I achieved a lot at Gainstead. We won the private secondary school championship. We won the Adidas Knockout Cup. During those days, Winston Chung used to be the coach along with Denzel Liu of Campion College. And Chung was always a mentor to me. I've always sat with him. He's a fabulous person to sit and talk football about. He can make an ice melt at the same time. He'll talk you to death. And I felt that having gone into the private secondary, and we went through the entire league unbeaten. Ivor Lodge was the leading goal scorer. He played for Cavaliers. David Burgess, as you know. Then I decided to move up the ladder, and I went to Excelsior, and started to coach Excelsior in 1978. We won the Walker Cup 3 years straight, 78, 79, 80, and we won the Manning Cup also. I remember in the 1980 Excelsior team, it was always said that the team played above the Manning Cup level. We defeated, I think, Camperdown with Blakey and Company in 1980, a very, very good Manning Cup final. From Excelsior, I moved on and helped out Wolmer's when I think Ron Jones had to go back to Wales, and I had coached Dujan, Samuda, etc. we were the only team that drew against an English college team, university team that came here. That played 3 games. They played against KC, they played against Wolmer's, and I'm not certain who was the third team. All teams lost, and the Wolmer's team, with Dujan and company, we drew the game. So we left with that honor that we were the only Jamaican team that was not beaten by, I think it's Chatham College, if I'm not mistaken. From there, I decided to take up coaching very serious. I had coached Marvelly at a stand with JDF, Santos. I remember Santos playing the Confederation Cup, and at that time you had Reno, who was the biggest team in the country. And I took Santos and defeat Reno 1-0 at the stadium. And at that point I started to realize that the way in which I thought about coaching, I was not seeing it from the local coaches, so to speak. And I had begun to take a dossier by saying, okay, when I'm going to play a team, I'm going to think how the other coach is going to think. And I used to try and do a lot of research, who he played for, how he played, because it has always been said, don't care what you do in life, wherever you get education, you're going to coach the way you used to play. So I found in using that particular method, I was able to beat a lot of coaches and teams in this country. Then I moved on to helping out Elson Flats in 1974, and I took Elson Flats to the 1974 Major League Finals, and we lost 1-0 to Cavaliers. Neville Oxford scored. Then I decided to move on in terms of coaching Waterhouse, and we started the Major League. We won the Major League, and you know the history behind that. And then I decided that I wanted to take a break, and then I went and tried to help Tivoli Gardens, Arnett Gardens, and had a good time in both areas, except that my idea of discipline possibly wasn't their idea, and I stood my ground on certain things. From there, village call. The funny thing about my whole career is that people are always calling me. I'm never calling people, and I'm always willing to help. And I was asked by Reno, help them out. I was asked by Village, and I think I helped put Village on some firm grounds as to where they are. Then it came the national job. I thought we did well because I only coached 4 games. We won 2, we lost 1 and drew 1. And from there, eventually end up coaching at the Premier League level. I honestly feel at this stage that if a breakthrough is not there for me in the national program, then I'm going to be thinking of going overseas, because I think I can go overseas. I've watched the English League a lot, and I think, quite frankly, I would think about 50% of the English football teams and coaches in England are now outdated in terms of what is modern football coaching. And sometimes I sit down and watch them on TV, and I personally believe I could change a lot of those teams. Outside of the top 6 in England, I think the rest of the English league stroke coaches are now way behind, because they're playing the old-fashioned kick-and-run football. And when you look at the top teams, you can see the coordinated football. So I'm thinking in that direction. I'm also thinking in possibly down the islands, possibly one of the stronger islands, possibly St. Lucia or St. Vincent, or you know, someone in that direction where I think they are the strong teams that I could go and turn around tremendously. So I'm sort of... Trinidad will always be there, but Trinidad will always be thinking, possibly the way Jamaica thinks, they're always thinking of either a foreign coach or one of their own or whatever it is. But my mind is being targeted and geared in that direction, that if something does not break through with the national senior program, because you can't have caliber coaches, forgive me for saying this, not blowing my trumpet, like myself, out there, and you have serious national programs, and we're not a part of it. Because I said I have nothing to prove. Show me the national coach that can show me that he has been to 19 finals in 29 years, from the school level to the club level, and I don't think I stand corrected. I don't think anybody has achieved this, and it is documented. So I think that in my mind, a lot of people have been tried and failed, because like everywhere in the world, if you're in charge of a national program and you fail, you must be replaced. I think I am very educated in not only being a player and coaching, but I think my knowledge is not really for the local aspect of our football right now. I think my knowledge is more geared for the national program. I was hoping that one day Carl Brown and myself would have been the peer that could coach the national program in terms of even me assisting him, etc. Because I think Carl is strong in some areas and he's weak in some, and I think I'm strong in some areas and I'm weak in some, and I think we would, quite frankly, suit ourselves together as a unit. I'd hope that one day that would have manifested itself, but it has never. The funny thing is, years gone by when I was a national coach and I requested Carl Brown, his name was turned down by the association for a specific reason which I don't want to go into. And I've always felt that when Carl was appointed as a national coach or technical director, he might have given some thought to ask me to assist him. It didn't happen. I was disappointed in that direction because I think some people felt that he might have felt a little bit threatened in terms of my type of tactical knowledge
Let me ask you
as against his. So, it's a seesaw thing, but I think that if there's a disappointment, I think that is a disappointment that Carl and myself did not get a chance to work together.
Let me ask you a question. Do you believe that the administration, the Jamaica Football Federation, has a problem with your outspoken behavior, attitude, so to speak? You are known to be very forthright in what you believe as a coach, right? Do you believe that there might be some second thoughts there as it relates to you coming into the national program?
I don't think so. I think one of the problems is that because of a strong personality that I carry, and sometimes you have people who are into the federation running the football is not as knowledgeable as I am, either by track record or by knowledge. And sometimes people feel threatened in that direction. I'm not the type of coach that I don't think the federation could pull the wool over my eyes. It has been said a lot that the other coaches are very yes-oriented. I think that one of the problems is that I might be too much of a strong character to sit with the federation because I call a spade a spade. I think we need to have strong views and we need to know exactly where we are going and how we are going to try and reach it and not play politics. I don't think I am outspoken to the point of being rude. I'm outspoken to the point that I'll tell you what is correct. And I would think, God forbid, 98% of the times I've been pretty accurate as to what I'm saying. So people tend sometimes to feel a little bit odd in your company. Whilst at the same time, I believe I'm a pussycat. That is very gentle and very, very simple person. But I stand very strong on certain issues that possibly they might be weak on. So it's a toss-up. But I think sometimes it's a matter of, you have heard about interference by federation people over the years in team selections and such. And they might think, Geoffrey would not stand for A or would not stand for B. But do you want somebody who is capable of delivering, or do you want a wimp in your system who is slated to fail? You know the person is going to fail. You are prepared to accept his failure because that failure gives you a platform to get a foreign coach. And that is where sometimes I think the whole juggling act goes. I think Carl and myself would have been a perfect peer to deal with the whole situation, but it just wasn't meant to be. And I think this is my greatest disappointment.
Well, very, very entertaining, very, very fun-filled discussion, and also very a lot of things being said here that I'm sure a lot of the viewers would not have heard before. And we're wrapping up on Sports Focus, but I think we have a couple of minutes to go. And Geoffrey, you mentioned just a while ago about the disappointment of not working with Carl Brown, because I think you guys do share a pretty good relationship. Is it that there's not a thought given to two local coaches working in tandem?
No, well, the overall situation, if Carl's in charge and I'm assisting him, Carl's in charge. I have no problem assisting him, or vice versa. My main concern basically is that I think Carl Brown and myself, quite frankly, are just about the only two coaches that can run a serious national senior program. I'm not knocking any of the other coaches, but the hard code factor is that, you see, it is not only a matter of coaching. You have to also have a personality. You also have to have some charisma that you can deal with sponsors. And this is where I think the shortcomings of the federation is. I know people might think, in Carl's situation, A, B, C, or D. But you have to have just more than coaching. As far as I can recollect, I think René Simões and myself has been the only two coaches, and I want you to read between the lines. René Simões and myself might have been the only two coaches that was invited to a Lions luncheon to speak. Now, I'm just saying to you, read between the lines. Who, charisma, personality, I'm not going to use that famous word, which I know you are searching for in your mind. But strangely, what we are looking at here is a local coach has to have more than coaching.
Are you
He has to
suggesting
be
that our
able-
local coaches are not necessarily marketable?
Yes, that is a segment that I'm trying to avoid, but it is a fact because some coaches could never go into a large firm and be sold to in this country. And I can tell that because these same sponsors and myself speak, and they will tell you that, but they wouldn't come up front and say so. I know I can go into any company, mix with any of them, and sit down and present a plan, which is another thing that I think our local coaches come up short with. When you're going to sponsors have to see where you're going at the end of the day. And I think this is why I'm saying that's why they lean to a foreign coach, because it is felt that they only have the brains to create a plan. You have to have charisma, personality, you have to be aggressive, you have to also be diplomatic, and you have to be able to discuss with them and show them what is on the board. And I know this is where I would think the local coaches on a whole has come up very short in terms of when the federation possibly is prepared to make a decision. And one of the other areas I think they have to strengthen is the idea of their technical committee. You have to have people in a technical committee who has a strong knowledge and background about football, because the technical committee has to advise the JFF. And you have to remember that most of the people in the JFF are administrators of parish associations. They are not that knowledgeable about football coaching or even possible football marketing. So this is where the foreign coach can come in, and I'm saying, I'm not speaking for the other locals, I know myself, I've always said, could operate identical to a foreign coach. But we're afraid to allow a Jamaican.